Over the past decade, something strange has been happening. We've given our children the most connected devices in history, and yet, they've never felt more disconnected. Rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness have skyrocketed, not gradually, but sharply, as if a switch flipped around 2012. And here's the haunting part. It's not a coincidence. In The Anxious Generation, social psychologist Jonathan Haidt uncovers the uncomfortable truth. Childhood itself has been rewired. The free play, independence, and face-to-face bonds that once shaped resilient, confident kids have been quietly replaced by screens, scrolling, and endless digital noise. And the result? A generation growing up anxious, fragile, and unprepared for the world. This isn't just another critique of social media, it's a wake-up call. Haidt argues that the way we've redesigned childhood may be one of the biggest social experiments in human history. And now we're seeing the consequences play out in real time. Introduction: Growing Up on Mars. Jonathan Haidt begins with a powerful metaphor. Imagine taking a child and raising them on Mars. The environment is alien. No breathable air, no gravity as we know it, no soil to plant in. The child would struggle, not because they're weak, but because the conditions themselves are hostile to human growth. What is Jonathan Haidt's point? That's what childhood looks like today. Kids aren't literally on Mars, but they are growing up in an environment just as unnatural. Instead of climbing trees, riding bikes, and learning resilience through play, today's childhood is dominated by screens, social media, and a digital world that overwhelms their still developing minds. Around 2012, something shifted. Smartphones and social platforms stopped being occasional tools and started becoming the environment. Childhood, once rooted in freedom, physical play, and direct social interaction, was quietly replaced with endless scrolling, constant comparison, and digital dependence. And just like the child on Mars, our kids are struggling to thrive in conditions that human development was never designed for. This sets the stage for Jonathan Haidt's central argument. The rise of anxiety, depression, and fragility among today's youth isn't random. It's the predictable outcome of placing children in an environment that doesn't match what they need to grow strong, resilient, and healthy. Jonathan Haidt's metaphor is clear. Our children aren't failing. We've placed them in a world that makes it nearly impossible for them to succeed. And the rest of the book unpacks how this happened and what we can do about it. Part 1. A Tidal Wave. Chapter 1. The Surge of Suffering. Jonathan Haidt starts by confronting us with numbers that feel almost impossible to ignore. Over the last decade, rates of anxiety, depression, self-harm, and even suicide among teenagers haven't just crept up, they've exploded. The rise is sharp, sudden, and global, as if some massive wave crashed over an entire generation all at once. This isn't the kind of gradual cultural shift we've seen in the past. Jonathan Haidt shows that around 2012, the curve suddenly bent upward. Hospitalizations for self-harm among teenage girls doubled. Reports of persistent sadness and hopelessness spiked. Suicide rates among teens, especially girls, surged. And this wasn't confined to one country. It appeared across multiple nations at nearly the same time. The big question: what changed? Why did suffering escalate so dramatically and so suddenly? Jonathan Haidt rejects the idea that this is just better reporting or a passing trend. The data is too strong, too consistent. Something in the environment of childhood shifted, and it hit adolescence with the force of a tidal wave. He frames this chapter not just as statistics, but as a human crisis. Behind every graph is a teenager struggling to sleep, a parent losing connection with their child, a young person doubting their own worth. The surge of suffering is not abstract. It's painfully real. This sets the tone for the rest of the book. If childhood today looks like growing up on Mars, then Chapter 1 shows us the first results of that experiment: a generation in distress. What we're seeing isn't just random bad luck. It's a sign that the foundations of childhood have been rewired, and the cost is being paid in the mental health of millions of kids. Part 2. The Backstory. The decline of the play-based childhood. For most of human history, childhood was built on one essential ingredient: play. Not structured, adult-supervised activities, but free play. Kids roaming outdoors, inventing games, testing limits, and negotiating conflicts with friends. This kind of play wasn't just fun. It was how children learned courage, resilience, and independence. Climbing a tree taught risk and balance. Getting into an argument on the playground taught negotiation and social skills. Scraping a knee taught that failure and pain are survivable. But over the past few decades, that world has shrunk. Fearful parenting, increased academic pressure, and the rise of digital devices have chipped away at unstructured play. Where kids once had the freedom of the neighborhood, they now have supervised playdates, organized sports, or worse, hours sitting indoors on screens. Jonathan Haidt warns that the decline of free play isn't harmless. Without it, children lose the very experiences that prepare them for the complexities of adult life. When the play-based childhood erodes, so does the foundation of resilience. Chapter 2. What children need to do in childhood. Here, Jonathan Haidt zooms out to the bigger question: what is childhood actually for? From an evolutionary perspective, childhood is training ground. It's the stage where human beings learn the skills, instincts, and social behaviors they'll need to survive and thrive as adults. And the training is supposed to come through doing, not just observing. Children need to explore, to venture beyond comfort zones, to build courage. They need to take risks, not reckless ones, but the small challenges that teach problem solving and persistence. They need to play with peers, testing boundaries, learning cooperation, and handling conflict without adults constantly stepping in. They need to practice independence for figuring things out on their own, so they don't crumble when life gets hard. But today, much of this natural learning has been replaced with structured schedules, helicopter parenting, and most dramatically, the lure of screens. Instead of exploring outside, kids explore TikTok. Instead of resolving fights with friends, they ghost each other online. Instead of testing their limits in the real world, they test them in video games. Jonathan Haidt's message is clear. If childhood is meant to be preparation for adulthood, then the current version is failing. We've engineered an environment that denies kids the very experiences they need to grow strong, leaving them fragile in a world that demands. Chapter 3. Discover Mode and the Need for Risky Play. Children are born explorers. Their minds are wired to push into the unknown, to test boundaries, to learn by trial and error. Haidt calls this Discover Mode, a natural state where kids embrace curiosity and risk because that's how they grow. Think about the first time a child dares to ride a bike without training wheels. There's fear, yes, but also exhilaration. That wobble, that fall, that triumph. It's a rehearsal for real life. Risky play, climbing, roughhousing, venturing into unfamiliar places, teaches kids to manage fear, master their bodies, and trust themselves. When we take away those chances, either by overprotecting or funneling them into endless screen time, kids don't stop seeking risk. They just redirect it. Instead of climbing trees, they chase dopamine hits from social media. Instead of testing their courage on the playground, they test it online through dangerous trends, anonymous chats, or constant comparison. Jonathan Haidt's point is sharp. Risky play isn't optional. It's developmental nutrition. Without it, kids grow up anxious, unsure of themselves, and ill-prepared for real-world uncertainty. Chapter 4. Puberty and the block transition to adulthood. Puberty has always been the bridge between childhood and adulthood. Historically, this stage came with responsibilities, new freedoms, and a gradual stepping into the adult world. In many cultures, rituals mark the shift, clear signals that you are no longer a child. But in today's world, that transition is blocked. Teens hit puberty biologically, but socially they're kept in limbo. They're told they're too young to handle real responsibility, yet old enough to be bombarded with adult content online. They're not given meaningful work, challenges, or independence in the physical world, but they're immersed in the chaos of digital life, where status, comparison, and constant judgment rule. The result? A generation of young people stuck in what feels like an extended childhood, frustrated yet unprepared. They crave independence, but it's delayed. They long for belonging, but find it in fragile digital communities. Instead of crossing the bridge into confident adulthood, many get lost halfway across. Jonathan Haidt warns us, if society doesn't restore that natural progression, giving teens responsibility, freedom, and real-world roles, we risk raising adults who feel perpetually unsure of where they stand. Part 2 reminds us of something simple but profound. Kids aren't born resilient. They become resilient through play, independence, and risk. Take that away, and we shouldn't be surprised when anxiety rises. Part 3, The Great Rewiring, The Rise of the Phone-Based Childhood. Chapter 5, The 4 Foundational Harms: Social Deprivation, Sleep Deprivation, Attention Fragmentation, and Addiction. Jonathan Haidt describes the shift to a phone-based childhood as nothing less than a rewiring of the human mind. Childhood, once lived through play, face-to-face connection, and physical exploration, has been re-engineered around glowing screens. And this shift, he argues, carries 4 foundational harms that shape today's mental health crisis. 1. Social deprivation. Humans are social creatures, especially children and teens. Friendships, arguments, laughter, shared play. All of these interactions wire the brain for empathy, cooperation, and resilience. But when childhood migrates to the phone, social life gets thinner. Instead of genuine human presence, kids scroll through curated feeds and fleeting digital interactions. They may have hundreds of friends online, yet still feel deeply lonely. Without real, embodied socialization, their emotional muscles weaken. 2. Sleep deprivation. Sleep is the foundation of mental health, but the phone is an enemy of rest. Teens are staying up later, scrolling endlessly, overstimulated by alerts and addictive feeds. Blue light tricks the brain into thinking it's still daytime. Messages buzzing in the night keep them half alert. This chronic sleep debt makes them irritable, anxious, and less able to cope with stress. And unlike missing a meal, you can't catch up on lost sleep. It chips away at their well-being day by day. 3. Attention fragmentation. The human brain wasn't built for constant interruption. Yet phones split attention into fragments. A few seconds on homework, then a buzz, then back again. Over time, this weakens the ability to focus deeply or think critically. Kids raised in this environment may find it nearly impossible to sit still, read for long stretches, or tolerate boredom, the very skills that nurture creativity and learning. Instead, their minds flicker like screens, shallow, restless, perpetually distracted. 4. Addiction. Perhaps the most insidious harm is addiction. Apps are designed to hijack dopamine systems, pulling kids into endless loops of checking, refreshing, scrolling. Likes and notifications mimic slot machines, delivering small hits of validation at unpredictable intervals. For a developing brain, this is devastating. Phones become not just a tool, but a tether, something kids can't imagine being without, even though it makes them more anxious the more they use it. Jonathan Haidt's argument here is sobering. These 4 harms don't exist in isolation. They compound. A child deprived of real friendships, exhausted from poor sleep, unable to focus, and trapped in addiction. This is not just a distracted child. This is a child at real risk of depression, anxiety, and long-term difficulty navigating life. The Great Rewiring isn't just about devices. It's about reshaping childhood itself. And the outcomes, as Jonathan Haidt suggests, are visible in rising statistics of loneliness, stress, and mental health struggles. Chapter 6. Why Social Media Harms Girls More Than Boys. Jonathan Haidt draws a stark picture here. While phones affect all children, social media hits girls much harder. Why? Because it taps directly into the deepest vulnerabilities of female adolescence. Girls tend to be more relationally attuned, valuing connection, belonging, and appearance in ways that social media amplifies and distorts. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat transform adolescence into a 24/7 beauty contest and popularity race. Every like, comment, or share becomes a signal of worth or rejection, which leads to: Number 1. Appearance anxiety. Filters, edits, and endless comparisons leave many girls feeling they're never good enough. Even a perfect selfie can attract criticism. Number 2. Relational aggression. Unlike boys, who often fight physically and move on, girls lean towards subtler forms of social conflict. Exclusion, gossip, subtle jabs. Social media supercharges this, making cruelty permanent and visible. A mean comment isn't just a moment. It's there for all to see, replay, and relive. Number 3. Fragile self-esteem. Just when girls most need to explore identity and build inner strength, their sense of self is outsourced to external approval, likes, follows, views. The result? Higher rates of anxiety, depression, and self-harm among girls. Jonathan Haidt shows how the phone-based childhood doesn't just stress them, it undermines their very sense of self-worth. Chapter 7. What is happening to boys? Boys aren't spared, but their struggles look different. Where girls are overexposed to social pressures, boys are often underengaged with real life. Phones don't trap boys in the same web of likes and beauty contests, but they pull them into other isolating loops like: Number 1. Gaming and pornography. Many boys retreat into virtual worlds that provide stimulation without real-world effort. Video games deliver adventure, challenge, and wins without risk. Porn offers intimacy without vulnerability. Together, they create habits of withdrawal. Number 2. Falling behind socially. As girls spend more time curating relationships online, with all the damage it brings, boys often detach altogether. Instead of learning to navigate awkward conversations, dating, or teamwork, they withdraw into solitary screen time. Number 3. Academic and motivational decline. With focus fragmented and dopamine drained, boys are losing drive. Haidt points to rising rates of disengagement in school, declining college attendance among males, and a growing sense of purposelessness. While girls spiral inward, consumed by social comparison, boys drift outward, disengaging from the developmental tasks of adolescence. Both paths lead to trouble, but in opposite directions, one toward anxiety and self-harm, the other toward apathy and isolation. Together, these chapters paint a chilling symmetry, the same device that girls also hollows out boys. The phone-based childhood doesn't just create problems, it reshapes gendered adolescence itself. Chapter 8. Spiritual elevation and degradation. At the heart of being human is a yearning for something higher, a pull toward meaning, connection, awe. For centuries, people have found this spiritual elevation in rituals, religion, nature, art, or even just in gathering with others under a shared purpose. It's that feeling you get when you're lifted out of yourself, when life seems bigger than your worries. But here's what Jonathan Haidt warns us about. Phones and social media don't just fail to give us elevation, they actively degrade it. Instead of awe, they feed outrage. Instead of reverence, they push mockery. Instead of lifting us into community, they sink us into endless individual scrolling. Adolescents, in particular, are wired to search for something beyond themselves during these years. They crave initiation, belonging, and meaning. But the phone-based world hands them shallow substitutes such as TikTok trends instead of timeless rituals, influencers instead of mentors, a rush of dopamine instead of a sense of purpose. And the tragedy? This leaves many young people spiritually malnourished. They're not given space to climb upward into something greater, so they often spiral downward, into cynicism, nihilism, or despair. Spiritual degradation shows up when a teen feels that nothing matters, when sarcasm replaces sincerity, when the higher self is starved because the glowing screen keeps feeding only the lower impulses. So Jonathan Haidt's message is sharp. Adolescence should be a climb toward transcendence, but right now, we're offering kids a slippery slope downward. Instead of helping them reach for what makes them fully human, we're letting technology shrink their souls. Part 4. Collective Action for Healthier Childhood. Chapter 9. Preparing for Collective Action. At this point in the book, Jonathan Haidt makes it clear, the problem is too big for parents alone to solve. Yes, families can set rules, limit screen time, encourage outdoor play, but if the entire culture keeps pulling kids back into the digital vortex, those efforts are like building a sandcastle against the tide. That's why he shifts the focus to collective action. If one parent bans social media but all their kids' friends are online, the child feels isolated, punished even. But if communities, schools, and parents move together, suddenly the rules become normal, not restrictive. Think of it like a public health crisis. No one parent can fight pollution or secondhand smoke alone. But together, society can create laws, norms, and safer environments. The same principle applies here. Protecting kids from the harms of a phone-based childhood requires a united front. Jonathan Haidt emphasizes 3 mental shifts needed before collective action can happen, which are awareness. Parents, teachers, and leaders must truly see the damage, not as just a phase, but as a profound rewiring of childhood. Next is courage. It's hard to be the first to stand against the tide. Courage spreads when people know they're not alone. And coordination. Change takes structures, policies in schools, agreements among parents, and cultural momentum that makes healthier norms stick. This chapter lays the groundwork. It's the moment where Jonathan Haidt says, "You are not powerless, but you are not enough on your own." We need a movement, not just good intentions. Chapter 10. What governments and tech companies can do now. Jonathan Haidt makes it clear here. Parents and communities can only go so far. The real power lies with institutions, the lawmakers who set the rules, and the companies who build the digital playgrounds where children now spend their lives. Governments, he argues, must finally step in and treat childhood protection online the way they do in the physical world. We don't allow kids to walk into casinos or buy cigarettes. Why, then, do we let 12-year-olds access platforms designed to hijack attention and manipulate behavior? Regulations around age verification, data privacy, and addictive design features are not just optional, they're overdue. And then there are the tech companies. For years, they've hidden behind the claim that they're just platforms. But Jonathan Haidt pushes back. These platforms are engineered environments, shaping how kids think, socialize, and even sleep. Companies could redesign algorithms to reduce toxic engagement loops, limit late-night notifications, and prioritize healthier content flows. They could, but will they, unless public pressure forces them to? This chapter is about accountability. Just as we don't let toy companies sell unsafe products, we shouldn't let tech firms off the hook for products that quietly corrode childhood. Chapter 11. What schools can do now. If governments and companies are slow to act, schools are often the first front line where change can be felt. Jonathan Haidt highlights one crucial point. Schools must reclaim themselves as learning environments, not extensions of the digital attention economy. This means creating phone-free schools, not half measures where kids keep their phones in their pockets, but truly tech-free classrooms and hallways. The evidence is overwhelming. When phones are removed, bullying decreases, focus improves, social interactions rebound, and even anxiety levels drop. But it's not just about taking something away. Schools also have the chance to bring something back: real play, in-person connection, and deeper engagement with learning. Jonathan Haidt urges schools to foster outdoor recess, sports, arts, and unstructured social time. Things that used to be the natural fabric of school life, but are now being replaced by screens. Teachers, too, can model healthier digital habits, showing students that attention, presence, and face-to-face dialogue are more valuable than endless scrolling. Jonathan Haidt's message is clear. If schools set the standard, they can create a cultural shift that radiates outward, giving kids not just knowledge, but the experience of a healthier, more grounded way of growing up. Chapter 12. What parents can do now. Here Jonathan Haidt shifts the spotlight to the people who are closest to children, their parents. And while the challenges may feel overwhelming, he insists that parents are not powerless. In fact, the home is where the first and most immediate changes can happen. The first step? Delaying the smartphone. Jonathan Haidt argues that kids simply aren't ready for the addictive pull of full-fledged smartphones and social media before high school. Giving a child a smartphone too early is like handing them a slot machine to carry in their pocket 24/7. Instead, parents can start with simpler phones, devices that allow calling and texting but don't offer unlimited access to apps designed to manipulate attention. Second, setting digital boundaries at home. This means no phones at the dinner table, no screens in bedrooms overnight, and consistent limits around daily usage. Parents often underestimate how much even small boundaries can restore family connection, encourage sleep, and reduce conflict. Third, Jonathan Haidt emphasizes community and solidarity. Parents acting alone often feel like the bad guys if their child is the only one without Instagram or TikTok. But when parents band together, agreeing to hold off on social media until later, or pushing for phone-free school policies, the burden is shared, and kids no longer feel singled out. And perhaps most importantly, modeling matters. If kids see their parents endlessly scrolling, sneaking glances at phones during conversations, or treating digital life as more important than face-to-face presence, they internalize that behavior. Parents need to demonstrate the very balance they want for their children, showing them that life offline is not just survivable, but richer. Jonathan Haidt closes this chapter with a hopeful note. Small, consistent choices at home ripple outward. Every delayed phone, every evening reclaimed from screens, every face-to-face conversation over dinner, it all pushes back against the tidal wave of the phone-based childhood. Conclusion: bring childhood back to earth. Jonathan Haidt closes his book with a call that feels both urgent and hopeful. We must bring childhood back down to earth. For too long, children have been pushed into a digital existence, scrolling, swiping, and living in worlds that float above the physical one. The result has been alarming: rising anxiety, loneliness, and a generation struggling to find its footing in real life. Childhood, Jonathan Haidt argues, was never meant to be lived through a screen. It was meant to be grounded in real play, real risks, real friendships, and the real world around us. To bring childhood back to earth means restoring what children truly need, which are time outdoors, where climbing trees, scraping knees, and building forts teach resilience. Face-to-face connections, where laughter, arguments, and shared adventures shape emotional intelligence. Unstructured play, where kids learn creativity and problem-solving not from algorithms, but from imagination. Gradual independence, where puberty becomes a bridge into adulthood, not a period of digital escape. Jonathan Haidt leaves us with a powerful reminder: childhood belongs here on earth, not behind screens. If we want a healthier generation, it starts with choices we make today as parents, teachers, leaders, and even as individuals. If this resonated with you, make sure to like the video, share it with others who care about the future of our kids, and subscribe for more thoughtful explorations of books that truly matter. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, let's keep bringing life back to balance.